So good morning, I'm Nicholas de Mattos. I'm a tutor and a student in the School of Philosophy and Economic Science. I'm going to talk to you this morning about the Greek myths. So I put in the quote already, a quote from Socrates through Plato. And he says, "So who among us might devise some of those fictions which arise in times of need of the kind we were just now speaking? The storytellers who invent one noble myth, especially to persuade the rulers themselves of the truth, or, if not, the rest of the city." So the great teachers of the world have always used stories, parables, allegories, to explain their teaching. And although Socrates he used few myths, few stories, nevertheless made use of plenty of analogies from everyday life. Jesus is well known for telling parables, and the great Indian epic, the Ramayana, is one long parable. My firm belief is that the Greek myths also were symbolic of a philosophical teaching which is now referred to as Advaita, or not two. This is said to predate any of the religions, although it can be traced in all of them. One aspect of this teaching is the imaginary division of the mind into four parts, as it appears in the Bhagavad Gita: the moving mind, the intellect, the heart, and the ego. And here is a table showing these parts and their characteristics. So, as you can see, you've got most of these things have, in fact, all of them have two distinct aspects to them. Moving mind can be this really efficient tool or computer which collates things, sorts things out, remembers things, applies things. Or it can be quite a nuisance. It can chatter along. If it's not occupied in something worthwhile, it can tell you you're no good, not up to the job. And what if this happens? It sows doubt and fear. That's referred to in the Gita as the manas. And then there's the intellect, referred in the Gita as buddhi. This is the decision maker, the one that decides good from bad, right from wrong. The two aspects of this, it can either be strong or it can be weak, often depending on our mood. And then there's the heart, the storehouse, where the seat of emotions, where things can lie dormant for years. This tends to be either congested, burdened, full, or free and light. In the Egyptian mythology, the heart is often depicted on a pair of scales, and on one scale is the heart, and on the other is a feather. This is to test the condition of the heart. And then there's the ego. Well, I think with this, it's either there or it's not. This is the motivator. It's not all bad. It's the thing which makes us do what we do, and it gives us our characteristics. But it can rule. And so that's the image of the mind. So beyond all these, the Advaita teaching goes, is the higher self, the watchman, from which standpoint, ideally, we would always operate rather than through these lower filters of the mind. Amazingly, although this looks like an Eastern teaching, it seems to be reflected strongly in the Greek myths, an inherent part of Western culture. But who was it who first taught the myths? One set of Greek myths are called the Orphic myths, and I think this is no coincidence that Orpheus, the minstrel who could charm all creatures, even rocks and stones, features in these myths and might well be their originator, using real figures but introducing mythological symbolism. This symbolism is universal. It seems to fit the mythology of every culture the world over, even in those markedly different from each other and at great distances from each other. So here is a list of the symbols. So you've got the hero and the monster. Think St. George and the dragon, Beowulf and Grendel, Jonah and the whale, the manticore in Persian literature, and various monsters in Buddhist and Shinto mythology, which have to be overcome by a hero, the subject of the story, the person on the philosophical path. The monster obviously is the ego. So I'm going to tell you, one of these Greek myths. Before I do that, just let me take you through these things. You've got the guide, goddess, or it can be a young woman being the teacher or the intellect. You've got weapons or tools which equal reason. Anywhere dark or maze-like is the mind. Anything flowing, consciousness. Anything golden denotes unity or nirvana, or it can be that most precious part of the ego. Anything creepy, crawly, it represents manos, the moving mind. The damsel in distress, peace or unity or nirvana. Anything reflective, the intellect or the buddhi. Winged denotes freedom, spiritual freedom, and friends and companions, fellow students on the way. So here's the myth of Theseus and the Minotaur. So Theseus was brought up by his mother Aethra in Trosden, not knowing who his father was, but was told that when he was 16, if he could move a certain rock, he would recover a sword which he could take to Athens. Rather than sail direct to Athens, Theseus opted to take the more dangerous route around the coast. Dangerous because all along it there were various criminals who would steal from and torture passers-by in various ways. Theseus defeated them all. After quite an adventure, being accepted into the palace of Athens, the subject of another story, Theseus learned of the horrific tribute demanded by King Minos of Crete, of 7 young women, 7 youths, to be sacrificed to the dreadful Minotaur, who lived in the labyrinth. This dark maze had been constructed by the great craftsman Daedalus, who had thereupon been imprisoned within it with his son Icarus, so that the secret would remain intact. Theseus insisted that he go as one of the youths and kill the Minotaur. Aegeus was unwilling to let him do this. But when he finally agreed, he made Theseus swear to change the black sail into black sail, with which the ship customarily left for Crete, to a white one on completion of the mission. Theseus replaced 2 of the young women with youths in disguise. He also visited the Oracle of Delphi, which advised him to sacrifice to and enlist the help of Aphrodite. He was greeted in Crete by Ariadne, the daughter of King Minos. She promptly fell in love with him and offered to help him kill the Minotaur if he would marry her and take her back to Athens. To this he readily agreed. Before Daedalus and his son escaped from the labyrinth by constructing wings, Daedalus gave Ariadne a ball of golden thread with instructions to tie the end to the lintel of the labyrinth entrance. The ball would then unwind of itself and lead its possessor to the Minotaur. Once the Minotaur was dead, the hero would then find the way back to the entrance by following the thread. Ariadne now gave this ball of thread to Theseus, who followed the instructions, slew the Minotaur with his sword, and retraced his steps by means of the thread. Meanwhile, the other 6 men and 2 youths disguised as young women overpowered the guards, and they all escaped the island. On the way back, they stopped on the island of Naxos, but Theseus, having no intention of marrying Ariadne, left with all the young people under the cover of darkness, abandoning the sleeping princess. Awaking, she invoked the gods for help, for revenge and ultimate rescue. Theseus, meanwhile, was so preoccupied with the triumph of his return that he forgot to exchange the black sail with the white one. His father, Aegeus, looking out for him on the Acropolis, saw the black sail, and taking it as a sign that the mission had failed, threw himself off the Acropolis to his death. Ariadne was rescued by the god Dionysus. So, what of this story and its meaning? So let's return to the symbols. The hero obviously is Theseus. The monster is the Minotaur. The god, it says a guide, god or goddess, it could also be a young lady who falls in love with the hero. And this represents a teacher, or indeed the intellect, that part of the mind which knows what to do. The tool in this story is the golden thread, meaning reason. Anywhere dark or maze-like, it's the labyrinth, obviously. Anything flowing. So the ball of thread, golden thread, unravels itself and leads to the ego. So the thread of reason, consciousness is the conduit of reason, leading to the ego, so that the ego can be overcome. Yes, anything golden, either nirvana, unity, or indeed that part of the mind, which is that part of the ego, which is precious. I think, as it says in the Bible, where your treasure is, there is your heart also. The damsel in distress. Oh yes, anything scuttling. Nothing scuttling in this story, but to take you back to Heracles and the Hydra, when Heracles is fighting the Hydra, a crab comes out of the swamp and nips him on the toe. The crab is an ally of the Hydra, and Heracles crushes it with his club. The damsel in distress, yes, that could be Ariadne, certainly the maidens that Theseus was rescuing. Anything reflective? Yes, so Perseus, when he goes to attack the Gorgon, he can't look at the Gorgon direct because he would be turned to stone. Mere sight of the ego tends to petrify one so that one can't move. But so he looks at the Gorgon in his shield and manages to kill her that way. Anything winged, Daedalus and Icarus make away from the labyrinth on wings, denoting spiritual ascendancy or advancement. Friends and companions, disguised as young women, help Theseus rescue the maids and youths. The evil king is often a feature in these myths, and here it's King Minos, often in the sense of owning the ego or being in control of the ego. And the ego often rules, doesn't it? So what can we take away from this? Well, it would be a good idea to remember these parts of the mind, wouldn't it? They tend to be a bit of filter. What we need to do is have a clear sight and not see things through the filter of the mind. We need to be prepared to crush that part of the mind, the manas, which tells you you're not up to the job. So I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, then please like it and share it. And I look forward to seeing you on another time, or being with you on another occasion. Certainly, there'll be another Philosophy Live next week. So, goodbye.